Let's look at the kind of people who want life coaching. First of all, executives. Executives are people who are in a position which can be a little bit tentative. It can be a situation in which if they excel, they can do really well, and if they don't, they may get fired. So they may hire you to step in and work with them to help them either get to the next level or just keep from being fired, because chances are they've gotten some heat from someone. Someone has said, hey, you need to step it up. Or in a more fortunate situation for you, they're just the type of people who want to do better than everyone else. And maybe they're already doing really well. Maybe there's no chance of them getting fired, but they want to do even better. So they've hired you to take them to that next level, to help them make that next step. Because although they know essentially what needs to be done, there's some part of them that's been somewhat unable to reach that next step. So they want to have you work with them and have you develop them to get to that next level. In a situation like this, where you're working with executives, it can be a very wonderful situation, because an executive is usually an employee. They're usually working for a large corporation, sometimes a startup corporation, but usually a large corporation. But they have a very clearly defined path. They know exactly what they need to do to get to the next level. So an executive is usually not in a position where they don't really know what to do. They don't really know what needs to be done. They usually have a very clear path. They can look at other executives in their corporation who are actually doing well, actually doing what they want to do, and they can say, hey, I want to be like him, or I want to be like her. Help me get there. So the pattern that you need to follow with them becomes fairly easily laid out and easy to follow. All you have to do is look at other executives in the same company who are actually doing well and start helping the person you're working with pattern their activities after the successful person. So it consists of getting them to stop doing what's not working and to start doing some new things that perhaps they haven't even thought of that the other executives are doing. So sometimes this requires you to do a little homework to find out what the other executives are doing that's actually working, and then to share it with them. But in many cases, when working with an executive, it'll be very clearly spelled out. The corporation knows what it wants, knows how to make that executive more successful and productive. All you have to do is get the executive to do those things. Business owners. Here's where you get into a group of people who don't have necessarily a clear path like executives. An executive is hired, and they're usually fit into the corporate structure. They're told that if you do A, B, and C, you will probably be promoted to the next level after X number of years, and you'll probably get a retirement after this amount of time, and you need to keep doing these things. We're going to train you at seminars that we're going to make you go to and teach you how to do this and that. So that's the way an executive's life goes. It's very patterned. A business owner, however, is trying to put all those pieces together, him or herself. They're trying to create that structure under which hopefully other people will operate eventually. Hopefully there will be executives under that business owner eventually. But in many cases, when you're working with a business owner, they've got just a handful of employees. Sometimes when you work with a business owner, they'll have a lot of employees. They'll have a large company. But in many cases, the company is not going to be huge. It's not going to be thousands of employees. If you find yourself in the fortunate situation of working with a business owner who has thousands of employees, then that's wonderful, because you're going to have the opportunity to work with a person who's going to be able to reward you very well. And sometimes people who hire life coaches will pay based on results. And for a huge company, a 1% increase can be a lot of money. And a percentage based on that, let's say 10% of a 1% increase, that can be a lot of money for you. So In some cases, you'll find yourself in those situations. In most cases, you'll find yourself where the business owner is just starting out and they don't want to go under. They want to go above and beyond, just like the executive, but they don't really have a clear path because they're a business owner. They make their own path, their own way. This can be a little bit of a challenge for you because rather than having the blueprint like you have with the executive, you don't really have much. You just have the open seas and you have no map, and you have to create your map to navigate through those seas. And those seas can be awfully stormy for a business owner because sometimes they don't know certain legal things yet. They don't have a lot of capital yet, meaning they don't have a lot of money, meaning if you don't produce, they don't have a lot of money to pay you and you're going to be gone. So you need to keep in mind the limitations of a business owner. But on the other hand, there's the excitement factor. There's a lot of wide open space. There's no clear path. So you can help create paths that you feel are going to work based on your studies of other businesses. Let's look at small business owners who are self-employed. Now, small business owners who are self-employed are the same as business owners, but I wanted to bring this category up to emphasize the idea of small business owners. When I say small business owners, I mean that they may not even have an employee, or if they have an employee, they have an employee. They have one employee. So small business owners who are self-employed are really not much different than business owners, but I brought up the point of self-employed here to show that they just made that step. It's fairly recent for them. They used to be employed, now they're self-employed. Maybe they were an attorney working for a law firm. Now they're working for themselves, and they want to build their own law firm. They're self-employed now, and it's a small business, maybe just them, maybe just one other person with them, but it's a small business. Here you really have your work cut out for you because you are someone who's been called in, and there aren't many people who have been called in. Maybe there's been the assistant who works for the business owner. They've been called in, so to speak. They have a job. As temporary as it may be, they have a job. You've been called in. Okay, they added one other person to the mix. They are very skeptical about having you there. You've got to realize that. You've always got to realize the ground you're standing on. The ground you're standing on as a life coach, unfortunately, tends to be a little soft most of the time because you're first in line to go. Now, I know I keep saying that over and over. You may get fired. You may be the first in line to go, etc. But it's true. It's absolutely true. It's reality. You have to accept that. You also have to accept the fact that you may be let go many times, and that's okay. You may have 10 clients. The next day, you have 7. The next day, you have 5. The next day, you added a few, you have 8. You never know. It's up to their discretion. You can have a contract, which is always nice, but they can always let you go even if they follow the contract. And realize that if you're not performing up to their expectations, then it's really not going to benefit either of you for you to stick around. You don't want to be in that kind of situation. But a small business owner who's recently self-employed is going to be a pretty much bare bones person, meaning financially they're not going to have a lot of resources, so they're going to be monitoring everything that you do. Everything that you do should coincide with making them money as soon as possible. But this is one of the categories you're going to be dealing with, the small business owners who are recently self-employed. How about managers who want to improve their leadership skills? This is a lot like the category of executives. Managers who want to improve their leadership skills are people who may not be as high up as executives. They may be somewhere in the middle. They're not working in the mailroom, so to speak, the proverbial mailroom, but they're not really sitting in the top floor corner office with the view of the city or the mountains either, somewhere in the middle. They're managers who want to improve their leadership skills. Managers are people who manage others. So leadership is very important for them. That's what they do. Not everyone who is called a manager has good leadership skills. Sometimes people are put into management positions because they're very good at what they do. So the company assumes that since they're very good at what they do, they can help others to be very good at doing the same thing. So if Mary is good at filing, or Jim is good at filing, then the company may assume that they can promote both Mary and Jim to help other people file. Mary can handle one aspect of the filing department, Jim can handle the other. They can both be managers, and we'll see how they do. Well, it doesn't always work that way. Part of my training at my doctorate level classes was in administration, learning how people work with other people, learning how they get along, learning how they use their skills. Sometimes people have skills, sometimes people don't when it comes to leadership. But what happens in many cases is that someone who's good at their job is not necessarily good at making sure other people do the same exact job. You would think they would be good. It just makes sense, doesn't it? It's kind of logical. If I'm good at stacking bricks one on top of the other, and you promote me to a position where I supervise 5 people whose job it is to stack bricks one on top of the other, you would think that I would do well at that. Because after all, isn't that what I do? Can't I teach that? But maybe I don't have the organizational skills or the leadership skills to motivate people to stack bricks properly, to get them there on time. Maybe I don't have those skills. Maybe I don't have the ability to do what you need me to do. So it doesn't always translate into me being able to manage others. So that's why a manager may call in a life coach to help them do what the people above them already assume they can do. How about people who want growth in their relationships? Every now and then, you're going to have someone who is going to call you in because they're just not really good at relationships. They're not good at making them work. Things aren't going so well for them. They don't know how to make a relationship work. And when you think about it, this person is really serious about relationships because they're spending money on it. They're hiring a life coach. Life coaches aren't cheap. They're hiring a life coach to come in and say, hey, here's what you need to do in your relationship. So they're paying money for it. Also, think about this. They've gotten to the point where they will pay money for it. They've probably exhausted everything else. They've probably tried talking to the person in their relationship or their various relationships. They've probably tried counseling of some sort. They've probably tried reading books and going to seminars, and really nothing's worked. That's usually the time at which you will be called in when it's something like this. So people who want growth in their relationships have usually tried everything else and now they want you. So they're very serious about relationships, but they really have no clue how to make them work. So here you come, and you have to solve this. You have to resolve it. You have to get it working smoothly. But when you think about it, relationships are not really limited to interpersonal relationships, to romantic relationships. Sometimes people have a challenge just speaking to people. Sometimes they're not getting out there. They're not networking. They're not doing things that will really help them. They're not doing things that will help them move along. And because of this social stifling that they feel, they're not moving along in other areas, perhaps getting jobs or being promoted or what have you, because they're just not good at forming relationships. And a lot of business, as you move up the ladder in the corporate world, has to do with relationships. And if you're a salesperson, that has to do with relationships. So when you help people with relationships, you really get into a lot of ground. Whether you're helping someone with their romantic relationships with their husband, wife, or relationships with their children, or their parents, or their grandparents, or interpersonal relationships that have to do with people they meet, their neighbors, or maybe their business associates who they go out bowling with, or playing golf with, or go out drinking with. No matter what realm you're getting into, you really get into interesting territory because you have to define the goal. And if you don't define the goal, then it becomes kind of odd and ambiguous. What are we doing? Well, I'm helping them shake hands. Well, what's that going to lead to? So you have to set standards and goals, especially when you work with this kind of situation. What about people seeking balance? Sometimes people just want to have balance. Now, usually when you have a client in this type of arena, the client is very well off. If someone ever calls you up and says, I need a life coach because I need balance. And they're talking very calmly like that. You're probably going to be dealing with someone who is at least a millionaire, if not more, and they just want things to flow. Now, if someone calls you up and says, oh my gosh, I just quit smoking and I just got a divorce and I'm buying a new house and wow, I could really use some balance. Okay, that's a different story. But if someone calls you up and they have a Zen-like attitude, you'll get to know the type of person I'm talking about, and they say, what I need in my life is some balance, some flow. The chi in my life, the chi energy that flows through my life is not flowing properly. You know what chi is? Chi is the energy used in feng shui, the Chinese art of placement, and proper chi flow through a home or office can actually aid in the efficiency of a person's life and allow it to flow smoothly, allow them to feel relaxed and powerful and calm and everything else they want. So if you have someone like that who's talking like I am now about spiritual matters, then you know that you have someone who is really into life balance. And if they're really into life balance and they don't say, well, I'd like to make more money, or I've got to get better at relationships so I can make more money. If there's no talk of money, usually they're fairly wealthy. That is a wonderful situation. But your job becomes a little less defined. Your job becomes a little more ambiguous when you get into relationships and just finding balance in general. Your job becomes one that you must start to quantify. You must start to put numbers on. You must say, okay, well, you're only meditating 3 times a week. How many times a week would you like to meditate? You see what I'm saying? You have to, no matter what category you're working with, get it into numbers. Get it into something that's schedulable. You have to be able to schedule it, and you have to be able to count it, because there has to be measurable improvement in order for you to be contributing to them in a measurable way. Now, occasionally, you're going to have clients who don't really care about that. They just want you around to help things flow smoothly. If you find a situation like that, you have found one of your cornerstone clients, because they'll probably keep you forever unless they stop liking you for some reason. As long as you stay in their good graces, you'll probably have them forever. If they don't care about numbers or quantifying or schedule, they just want you to help them have things flow, then go with it. Let go of everything I said about numbers and scheduling and work with what they say. They're the boss. If you find one of those clients, which are rare, then keep them forever. What about people who want growth and change? Now, people who want balance are a little different from people who want growth and change. Balance is something where you've got A, B, and C going. You've got maybe the grandchildren, and you've got the yacht, and you've got this idea for a movie script. And let's say this is a millionaire who's called you up, and he or she has all these things going on. They just want everything to balance out. You see, there's not really a lot of tension there. There are things going on, but they're not things that sort of pull at the person in a negative way. They're actually wonderful things that are going on. So grandchildren, a yacht, and a potential script, these are all just wonderful things that are really all about fun and giving and sharing and so forth. However, what if a person specifically says they want growth and change? Okay, this is a person who's not really successful yet in their own mind. Keep in mind, you can be dealing with the richest person in the world. If they're not satisfied yet, then they're not successful. Some of the wealthiest people in the world are some of the least successful people in the world because they haven't reached their own personal best yet. They haven't satisfied themselves. Sometimes this is because they go in the wrong direction. They think that chasing money is going to do it. They find out it's not going to do it. I was reading recently about the guy who directed a lot of Jim Carrey's movies. He sold his stuff, all his toys, his Hollywood toys, as he called them, and he moved to a trailer park. Because although he was a multimillionaire, he just wasn't satisfied. He felt that he was part of a corporate machine or something like that. And he wanted to get away from all that and just live a more pure life. So now when he has people talk with him, he requires them to paddle out on the water with them on a board before they talk to him. So that's a person who has gone very far and realized, wait a minute, wrong direction. That's not where I wanted to go. So not everyone who is wealthy is actually successful. So when people come to you and they want growth and change, that's a big challenge. You need to quantify what growth, quantify what change. Sometimes it's going to require a little soul searching first, figuring out what they'd like to change and how they would like to grow.